Welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast. My name's Dualta Doherty, and in this podcast series, I will be speaking to investors, advisors, entrepreneurs, and recruiters who are based all over the world, and we'll be discussing how to set up, scale, and operate a world-class recruitment company. Today, I'm speaking to Joe McGuire. He is the Global Sales Director for Cube19. They are a data and analytics software company that help get the most out of your recruiters by integrating with your ATS. And we discussed how you can go about that. I'm sure it is an area that a lot of you know about. A lot of people who are setting up their business now, if I could give them any advice, it would be to track your data better, have that process rock solid, and get some of the best tools out there that integrate with your ATS that can help make your life a lot easier. And again, this is another question that was posed again, same as Adam Gordon did from Candidate ID. Like, should a piece of software be your next hire as opposed to another head? Like, should we be doing more to get more out of our recruiters by setting them up for success rather than continually to just add headcount? Probably something a rec shouldn't be pontificating about. But look, it seems to be making sense. It seems to be where the market's going. And, an example of my own business is I just haven't done it right. So I'm really curious how, if I do something again in the future, how I can do things the right way and what tools I should use. I also asked Joe if he was to set up his own recruitment business, what other tools would he use that are out there in the marketplace? Just so you know, I don't use Cube19, so I can't really reference as to its quality, but we've had tons of our people on the podcast that have really said it was great. So that's why they're on. And I'm really grateful to Joe for coming on.
Hello.
Hi there, Joe. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Yeah, I am brilliant. Welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So, Joe, I put out a bit of a back call for what are the coolest products out there in agency recruitment, and I got shouted at a few times that Cube19 is where it's at. So we by a few different emails and all the rest, here you are.
Well, it's nice to hear that people are talking highly about us in the market.
Yeah, and we've had a few guests on that have used it. I think Toby Babb was on talking about it and how it's really helped his business grow.
Yeah, Toby was, I think he was our third customer actually. So we've been working together for about 6 years now. But he seems to be, he's always out in the market. He loves his talk tracks.
He does, yeah. Yeah, I probably had 2 listeners at the time he came on. He's an early adopter of things.
Certainly is, yeah.
So look, I'll not keep you too long today. I want to figure out some stuff that I don't know. And here's the thing: I've made a lot of mistakes in my business. I haven't tracked my data right. My database is a mess. But I want to figure out what the best people are doing out there, and we're going to go into all of that. But first, give us a bit of context into how did you get into recruitment?
I think, like most people, I never set out to be a recruiter. It was one I just had an opportunity to get into it. So I'd gone down the engineering path after my A-levels and stuff, and worked at a couple of engineering companies. It wasn't really for me, and I was chatting to someone who introduced me to a friend of theirs who owned a recruitment company. I went for an interview, just an hour-long one. He offered me the job on the spot. I accepted on the spot, and then did telecoms and IT recruitment for a couple of years. And it was good, I enjoyed it. It was certainly a very new experience for me. But I certainly have never set out to be a recruiter.
Yeah.
And now I'm just trapped in the industry. I'll probably never leave.
So I remember what it was like. I did IT and infrastructure for a few years when I started out, and I have one conversation with an IT software company, And I think if my visa wasn't tied at the time, I I probably would have jumped down that road. And it seems to be a really good career option for people who want to leave agency recruitment, but at the same time, they kind of want to use some of the contacts and some of the stuff that they've learned in that job already. Was it an easy transition into IT sales?
Yeah, it was for me because the IT sales I moved into was directly related to my experience. So I joined Broadbean in 2007. So 2 years as a recruiter, I'd used Broadbean since day one in recruitment. So I used it. I knew the value of it. It was a great product. It was easy to use, and I actually knew the guys at Broadbean pretty well. For those, Dan McGuire. But the
Really?
sales director approached me about a role there, and I was the profile of person he was looking for, having worked in recruitment. And I moved to Broadbean, and I was okay at recruitment. I would never claim to be a world beater, but I sort of excelled in that because it was something that I could really relate to, and I had actually used before.
Yeah. What was it like working for your brother?
Everyone asked that actually. I didn't work directly for him. I worked for the sales director, so ultimately he was my boss, of course, but we didn't really interact too much in the office. And it was one of the big things for me. I didn't get the job because I was his brother, and I didn't want to be treated as I was his brother. So it was very clear that if I'm not hitting my numbers, I get shown the door like everybody else. And actually, a lot of people at the company didn't even know we were brothers for quite some time. We kept it very professional in the office, and that was always important for me.
All right, very good. And what was the big difference between, like, what was the big learnings from going from recruitment into a sales role selling recruitment technology?
In a lot of ways, it's a simpler process. Effectively, what we're doing in recruitment is we're selling people to people. So you've got, two people that can actually say no throughout the process. Where when you're selling software, you're building a solution. You're building a solution that answers questions they've got. It solves problems they've got, direct problems. And as long as you can identify those problems and your solution matches what they're trying to do, you should be able to get a deal out of it. And the great thing is your software can't say no. Can't say I don't want to do the deal.
Can't lie to you. Can't bullshit you.
Sorry?
The software can't lie to you. It can't bullshit you.
Yeah, exactly. Some people do, in their companies lie about their software and capability, but the software can't lie on your behalf. So
very good. And you were there for a number of years. Was that a big decision to move on from Broadbean to where you're at now?
Yeah, it was a really big decision. It was one I didn't take lightly. I mean, I was thinking about the next step for probably 6 or 9 months before I actually made the move. And I didn't know what I was going to do at that point when I was sort of planning. But I think being in that role, I learned a hell of a lot. And I really enjoyed my time there. And I'm still very close friends with
your brother.
Loads of people I work with there. So for me, it was I just felt it'd run its course.
Yeah. What was your key learnings?
The key learnings.
Yeah.
I think the key learnings is just sort of just understanding about strategy in sales, and not being so reactive to what people are saying and what people are doing. Planning is so essential, making sure that every step of the process, you know what you're doing and why you're doing it, rather than in my early days of sales, I think, probably just winging it a lot of the time, just hoping for the best. So strategy in sales, I think, is the thing that helps people really excel.
And is that because in what you do, you're dealing in longer lead times in terms of making that deal? I'm sure every year companies have to sit down and go through their budget, and it's a big decision to take on Cube19 or whoever it is, and you're working with them throughout the year to educate them that that's the right decision. Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the deal cycles at Broadbean were typically much shorter than they are at Cube19. We're selling a very different solution that's answering very different needs. Broadbean, realistically, if you needed an extra couple of deals in on the last day of the month, it wasn't unrealistic. You could pick up the phone and get a couple of deals in on that last day, people that you've perhaps never even spoken to before. Whereas with Cube19, it's rare we'll do a deal after the first phone call. We've done it with some smaller companies with needs that we can really answer, and they're quite glaring pains. But for us, it's and the larger the companies you're dealing with, when you're dealing with companies where they've got 300, 400 recruiters in a business, the sales cycle can potentially run for a year. So yeah, it's a very different approach.
Okay, and those early days with Cube19, are you one of the founding members?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so Dan, my brother, was the founder of the company, but I joined right at the start, and that was really one of the key drivers behind it. That I wanted to be involved in something from day one and build something from the ground up. And I'd like to think I had a pretty big impact in Broadbean's growth, but I was one of many people there. So to come in and take the responsibility on my shoulders of growing out the client base from nothing was a challenge I really wanted to set myself.
Has the vision of the company changed in the 7 years? Like, is it the same company as it set out to be?
Yeah, we've ultimately the vision is the same. We want to be the analytics supplier to the recruitment industry globally. So that's never changed. We've gone off on little different paths and little different tangents along the way, and we've had a lot of learnings, and there's certainly a lot of stuff we didn't get right from the start. But ultimately, the vision is still the same.
And let's say I'm an agency owner, and I'm using I've got a database. Think my consultants are putting in the information. We kind of review it. I can run a search and stuff. What's the first step of when you look to see how good somebody's keeping a database? What does it look from an audit perspective? I take it the first thing you do is audit what they're doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Data quality or usage of CRMs is one of the biggest risks we identified as a business of Cube19, because if the data's not in the CRM, we've got nothing to help them analyze. So we set out to help people fix the data quality problem, because my belief is that every recruitment business in the world has a problem with getting adoption of the CRM. And it's at varying levels. Some people use it really well and others don't use it at all. But generally speaking, when you talk to companies, they've got a perception of how good or bad their data quality is. And most people normally go pretty safe and say it's a 5 out of 10. But actually, even the ones that think it's really good, when you start to show them the gaps, or when we load the data in and we can visualize the gaps for them, there's a load of stuff they've not even considered would be deemed as poor data quality. A good example of that is a lead indicator where a recruiter typically isn't using the CRM well is a perm recruiter where their time to fill is 0 days. So it took 0 days from us pulling the job from the client to placing the candidate. And the only reason for that is they've added the job and the placement both on the same day, which then often means that they haven't added any candidate CV sent or interviews. If they have, it's probably just the one they placed. So that means that there's gaps in the data throughout. So when you start to show people that and talk about what the impact and knock-on effect of that is, basically those things there throw every other metric out. Your ratios are incorrect, your client reports are wrong, your job pipeline reports are wrong, your projections, your forecasting, it's all thrown out off of these things. So we're trying to help people identify these gaps so they can fix them at ground level.
And given that you're able to identify all of this, I'm guessing there's a narrative that comes within best practice that you're seeing with some firms and from lesson learned. Do you also educate clients on a process that maybe they should be doing to get the most out of their data?
Yeah, we've got experts within our business that have, our technical customer success people. A bunch of them actually worked at the CRM partners we have in the past, so they've got first-hand experience of correct workflow and so on, and ideas where people can streamline their process. But the key thing here is it has to be a cultural change in the business. You can't just install software and think it's going to be a silver bullet and fix the problem for you. It will help you identify the gaps. And of course, something like Cube19, where we gamify information onto TVs, we give people a real direct reason to put data into the CRM. You still need to have a cultural shift and a cultural change with it if you expect anything to actually, if you expect the needle to move.
Yeah.
And that is a top-down view. The directors have to be bought into it, and they have to manage through data. They have to know that the managers have to know that the directors are managing them through it, and ultimately down the chain, the managers are then managing the consultants, and it's everybody's responsibility, but with a top-down view.
And if I'm a recruiter in the business, right, that and I'm working on a daily basis, what does that mean for me? As how will that help me make more money? What type of is that? What type of stuff's going to be coming up on the screen?
Well, I think going back a step before that, the problem with data in recruitment businesses is a lot of the time it's used incorrectly. So it's used for KPIs, and KPIs are often the wrong metrics with the wrong target levels. That we're encouraging people to do the wrong actions and activities that don't lead to more placements. So there's this negative connotation across the market where KPIs are a bad thing. KPIs should be a good thing because they help us know if we're on track and help us achieve the desired outcome more if we get it right. Now, often people have a manual process to tracking that information. So even though they're inputting the data to the CRM, it's not easy always to get that information out to know if we're actually achieving it. So we'll have a manual spreadsheet, which the recruiter has to then input data into as well as the CRM. We're only looking at it on a weekly or monthly basis. So we're looking back at the past, and we can't affect change in the past. It's like, my train app telling me today that my train yesterday was going to be delayed. That's no good. It doesn't help me do or change my decision making. So it's about making sure that we change our view of data and how we use it. But ultimately, to answer your question, recruitment by its nature is a sales process. It's inefficient because, if you look, how many phone calls do we have to make before we pull a job? How many CVs do we have to send before you arrange an interview, and so on through the process. So by identifying where we are inefficient and where we are really efficient, we can do more of the good stuff. If we can identify what good looks like, we can replicate that. But without being able to identify it, we're using gut feel. And gut feel at best is unreliable.
Yeah, I'm an awful man for gut feel. It's definitely the thing that's kept me back in my business. And that's probably led me to having these conversations now. So if I was to break down what that actually means, what you just said, if I'm a recruiter and I'm at my desk, in real time, is your product able to kind of say, given what we know of the past and given what your activity is thus far, and given that this is your pipeline, you need to probably do this activity in the coming couple of days to achieve an outcome? Is it predictive?
Predictive is a word we don't use because coming back to the point about data quality underpins everything we do. So people often talk about predictive or AI. At the moment, companies aren't ready for that because at best, you're going to be predicting on incomplete data, which quite probably would show you the wrong route to take. So we're much more at the moment about helping people fix that data quality problem, the underlying data quality problem, and then presenting that data in a simple, intuitive format, but the right information at the right time. So managers can still use their experience and coach recruiters based on what they know is right for their business, because there absolutely needs to be an element of gut feel introduced to this as well. It should work alongside data because we're still in a relationship business, so the computers can't work out that level of nature of relationship at the moment. So no, I think I think it's about fixing the data quality problem before you start to predict, but having all the information presented to you in a simple format so you can make your decisions with some science behind it.
Well, what are you seeing in the market at the moment? Is it just the UK that you guys operate in, or are you like over in mainland Europe as well? And like, where's things happening like really hot right now?
Look, we've got an office. Our head office is in London, where most of our staff are. We've got a couple of people based out in Australia as well. Our clients actually are all over the world. So everything from west coast of America, all through Europe, UK, Europe, and Asia to Australia and New Zealand. Biggest concentration of clients where they're headquartered is actually in the UK. But we work with all sorts of businesses from we've got a one-person company that uses Cube19 all the way up to some 300 plus recruiter organizations as well. So the majority of the data you look at would then be based on the UK market. So we talk about that for a minute.
Yeah,
probably quite relevant with regards to Brexit and the uncertainty we're in at the moment. So there's some things that are actually, they sort of support what your theory would probably be about the type of market we're in. So we're in a candidate short market. Unemployment is at its lowest. So there's a skill shortage. So what we're seeing actually that sort of supports that is that average fees are up. Average salaries are up as well. on this time last year. So that's a positive trend. Perm placements are actually slightly down, which again, it's not probably not a shock to anyone, because in a market that's uncertain, people actually sometimes just delay or slow down the perm hiring. But also with a candidate short market, if it's not possible to find the right people, then people don't necessarily hire. Contract placements are up, which again, you would probably predict in an uncertain market. We're going to go down the contractor route rather than the risk and the cost of the perm employees right now, just until we know a bit more. So I wouldn't say there's anything that's worrying the market. I'd say the market trends that we can see are actually in line with what I would predict in a type of place we are right now.
Yeah, it is like it. Like I feel like the news and stuff is telling me that businesses are moving abroad. We're going to go into recession, but what I'm hearing from recruitment businesses is that it's business as usual. We're all doing really well. We're all hiring. It just seems it is worrying that maybe are we in the eye of the storm, or generally is it just a good market for recruitment? So.
Well, it's a good market for recruitment. Companies are growing at the moment. Most companies in most industries are growing. I think the thing that people are really focused on when I speak to them is growth, for sure. Some people just sort of say, we want to at least stay at the level we're at right now. But the thing is, when you talk to people about growth means different things for different companies. If you look at the real basics, revenue and profit is what everyone would talk about. But often when people are talking about, in a recruitment business, increasing revenue, you ask how they're going to do that, what their objectives are to achieve that. And they say adding headcount, putting bums on seats is how we're going to grow revenue. But actually, in reality, what if you could get every recruiter lifted up by 10 or 15%, or even 5%, 25%, whatever the number is? Getting more out of your current cost base is naturally the most efficient way to grow and scale. And I think we're in this industry where it's always just been more heads means more revenue. But actually, what about if we just focused on getting the best out of everyone we've got, onboarding our new hires faster, retaining our top talent more by helping them be more successful, and understand where the time is best spent and cut out the noise? So that seems to me one of the biggest conversations we're having, or the thing that is leading the conversations we're having, is how do I get more out of my current cost base?
Yeah, it makes sense. Adam Gordon was on here from Candidate IT a couple of weeks ago, and he posed the question: should your next hire be a piece of software? And give me all the stats to back that up, just like you just did. So it does seem that it's a really exciting time to be a boutique recruitment firm. That, like, if you have low enough headcount, the people are really good and you can make them better. It just seems wide open for that right now. You must deal with a lot of the larger companies, or companies that are growing really fast. Well, what type of similarities are you seeing there? Like, are they mainly in technology? Are they mainly, like, is it discipline specific? Are they doing international from the UK? Are you seeing any, like, when you see the ones that are growing really fast and getting the most out of you, like, what type of businesses are they?
They really vary. We've got a bunch of life sciences clients that are doing really well. IT, the current market we're in, is doing really well. Then even things like healthcare, education, there's always talk about sort of the NHS funding of things, but there's still always a high demand for that type of person. So I think there's no specific sector I would pull out as doing extremely well. Oil price has been increasing, so naturally those companies are doing better. But the international expansion seems to have been a much bigger thing over the last 2 or 3 years.
Massively.
Lots of our customers have expanded, and actually a lot of them are going US. So hitting East Coast to start with. Very few go West Coast first, I think, for obvious reasons. But we've seen lots of customers spread across the US. So, Texas has been a bit of a hub for people, and finally hitting the West Coast as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we do for a living, mainly. We move recruiters to the US from the UK. Right. So we've been doing that for a few years now, and that is true. They do hit New York first as a point of call, but more and more we're seeing them hit LA now. I think Texas is tough for them to grow because it's harder to attract talent, and then there's a lot of oil and gas recruiters out there already, and they don't transition that well into other disciplines. So look, this really interesting. What type of stuff can we do to prepare ourselves if we want to get software into our database? Like, what type of things should we be doing to make sure that all our business is in line, we're getting the most out of our data?
I think putting a bit of a plan and a strategy together. Not thinking of software as I'm going to do one piece and then the next. So often people say I'm going to put a new CRM in. They're not thinking about what other things they're going to want. They're going to want a timesheet system connected to that. They're going to want analytics, a telephony platform. What is the vision? Where do you want to be as a business, and what's going to make you most efficient? And understanding what platforms are going to be best to get you there, and in what order. Now, some of those you'll do together, makes sense to, and others it makes sense to delay. And it really depends what your key drivers are, what pain points you're trying to fix. Prioritize them first, but still have a plan for the future. I've worked globally for quite a while now. As I said before, I worked from US through Europe to Australia, and very different markets and recruitment businesses approach software in very different ways.
Oh, really?
The UK market, it's interesting actually. The UK market still seems very much like if you're a recruitment tech supplier, you're the enemy. Whereas the US is very open to it. And I think one of the biggest challenges we have is that our cost of acquiring a new customer is not insignificant. So we're investing in a sales process, and we know that we will deliver value in that process to a company throughout. Whether they go with us or not, we're going to give them enough value in that to make it worthwhile them spending time with us to have these discussions. Yeah. We're not trying to catch anyone out. We are trying to just make them aware of the possibilities and talk about where we can help. And I would be the first one in that process to step out of it if I didn't believe we could deliver value to them, because it's not worth my time, because they would never sign with us. So I think I think we need to work more closely together. No one's trying to have anyone over. We're trying to present a solution to you that if you believe is the right thing, hopefully you'll sign up to. But maintaining contact and communication is the most important thing for that, and just being open with people. US market seems very much like that already. UK market, I think, is still sometimes that supplier buyer rift, or I think there's a lack of trust, and I think that's partly down to people being burnt in the past with suppliers and not quite trusting them. I think there's a lack of suppliers out there now, the trustworthy ones that are doing some really good stuff.
Yeah, I think there's a lack of humanization in a lot of the process. Like I've known from doing this podcast myself that at first, like a lot of them would have seen me as just some guy that would have sent a resume every now and then. And now I've had this conversation with them where I'm kind of seen in a different light, and they might message me the odd time, "Oh, happy birthday," or "How are you tracking?" or "How's the podcast going?" or "Can I ask you a question about the city?" or whatever. It just puts the more stuff that you collaborate with people, the easier it is to be seen in a different light, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've made a big point of working very closely with our partners. So the CRM partners we integrate with, we host events with them, we sponsor their events when they have them, and we're aligned with them. And I think that's really important, because it shows to the market that actually, again, we're doing some good stuff for a lot of companies. We don't go out to work with companies we can't deliver to, because they won't stay with us, and that's not good for our reputation. So I think it's just I think recruitment businesses just having a bit more trust that the suppliers are out there, most of them, to deliver some real value to the business. And if we can't deliver it, like I say, as Cube19, we'll be the first to tell you we can't, and we'll walk out that process.
Yeah. Well, just with the integration piece on your software, I know that your partner Bullhorn. How many other ATSs do you work with?
A lot of the sort of key ones in the UK market. So Bullhorn is the global leader with regards to size of client base.
Sure.
We work with Bullhorn for Salesforce as well through their acquisitions. Then the likes of eRecruit, or Bond Adapt as it was previously called, we work with a couple of their different versions. The Access Group have acquired RDB ProNet and Microdeck. We work with both those guys. ITRIS we're working with. And then we're going to be starting a new integration with one of the Australian providers pretty soon.
Is that Job Adder?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Oh, good. That's what I use.
All right.
All right, cool. So that's good. I mean, I suppose isn't that one of the hardest pieces of probably your job is when you speak to somebody and you're like, this, oh no, our software doesn't work with your ATS, and then they're like, oh, that means I have to change my ATS, and then I have to, I don't know, I'll come back to me next year and I'll decide.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things we would never be suggesting someone changes their ATS or CRM platform to work with us. That's not the right reason to move. If it's working for you and it's delivering value for you, then great. If there's other reasons, if it's not doing what you need it to do and you need a bit of an update or whatever, then of course going out to market and assessing what's right for your business, what's the right solution, that's recommended. But we would never encourage anyone to move to use Cube. It's a big upheaval to move your ATS.
Yeah.
Back to my statement before, we want to be the growth analytics platform for the recruitment industry. It means we're going to be doing more integrations over time. So we will get more option for market share in that way.
And you must rub shoulders with lots of other software vendors. You must be going to similar events, and I know there's a lot of other good stuff out there. If I was to put you in a different scenario where you were to set up your own recruitment company, you had a bit of funding, you knew what you were doing from day one, what tools would you use?
That's a difficult one.
I know.
Because I haven't worked in recruitment for about 12 years now. So as a recruiter, so it's difficult because I've never used a lot of these platforms. But look, I'd be looking to put an ATS in. We're a cloud-based business. We don't use any software that's not in the cloud for reasons that it's more scalable, it's accessible remotely, and so on. So I'd be first of all looking for a cloud-based recruitment platform. Then I would be looking for a telephony platform that connects into that for click to dial. We do use Cloud Call, so I can mention those guys. But with the CRMs, for instance, I mentioned we work with the sort of key players in the market. There's some really cool software out there. Naturally, I'm going to say Broadbean because I worked there for a long time. It's a great product. But some stuff out there, like things like Sourcebreaker. Sourcebreaker guys are working with some really good companies now, and it seems like a very efficient tool to be generating leads and candidates through.
It looks cool, yeah. I think there's another one, TextKernel, isn't there?
Yeah, TextKernel are a career builder company. I've never used that one. I've looked more at the Sourcebreaker stuff and TextKernel, but I hear really great things about TextKernel for parsing and things as well. You've got the Volcanics of the world working with a lot of the big companies, and they're generate the websites for them. So different way of looking at websites, instant websites effectively that have got all the SEO built in.
What did you call that, sorry?
CRM. Volcanic, okay. Yeah, the really key things I'll be looking at is a pre-integrated solution to my CRM and ATS. Because if it's pre-integrated, then you can plug it in far easier and you get the value of all the data being automatically collected in one place. The video interviewing is really taking off. So things like Hinterview, I think would be that's a really sensible thing to look at. I know there's a couple of others out there as well. But
yeah, there's always debate between Hinterview or Odro, I've seen.
Odro, yeah, another good one. But they're the key things I think I'll be looking at. Obviously, if I was doing contracts, I would need a timesheet portal as well. Something like InTime, ETZ. But again, I'm not sort of listing all of the suppliers.
No, I understand. No,
I've seen them most, and we have customers that tell us they're doing really good things.
Yeah, no, I just would have thought that you would have a unique perspective on what would be out there. So and you have, so that was great. Look, thanks for coming on. I'm conscious of your time. Really appreciate it. Sounds like a good product. And yeah, we hopefully I'll be big enough someday to use you.
Yeah, hopefully so. Well, like I said, we've got a one-person organisation that already uses us, so there's value out there for sure. But we'll take that offline.
Thanks, Joe. All right, take care.
All right, thanks for your time. Thanks.
Well, a big thank you to Joe for coming on the podcast and for giving us a little bit of an insight into how the best recruitment firms run their business right now and where they're seeing the most growth. From what I'm seeing, America seems to be the place where a lot of companies are setting up, and Germany is also the other one. So and to a lesser extent, I see a lot of people doing financial services and in Amsterdam as well. I feel like those markets are just so much more exciting to work than the UK market, which is just very saturated. But yeah, look, if you have any comments, or if you're running a recruitment business that's doing remote recruitment for anywhere in the world, I'd love to have you on. Whether you're one of the big players or you're just a one-man band like myself. Yeah, if you're enjoying the podcast, just hit me up on LinkedIn and we'll get you on. We'll have a chat and hopefully you can add a little bit of value to our listeners. All right, that'll be it until later on today, I think. Happy hunting.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.